Hello to Carl and Benjamin from Tella Viv. So now you're over 5 years into your life as a band, 3 EPs, and you finally get around to releasing your first album, I. So how does that feel to have reached that milestone?
Feels good. It's something we've been waiting for a long time. We always want to make an album. We're always kind of set on making an album, but we always said that we wouldn't release an album until we felt it was the proper time to do so, and we had the right material and the right people to work with and everything. So we felt that everything was right now and that stars aligned, so we decided to make our first album. And it's something that we've always been waiting for. I mean, as a musician, you do kind of fall in love with the album format, and I view a lot of the music I love in albums, like all the albums that you really love, and it feels like you haven't really created one big cohesive work until you've released an album. So it feels great to be doing that for the first time.
You've been in the game for a while now, so you have put out quite a lot of material to this point. With an album, was it a matter of just putting in the work until you got the right songs together? Or was it a matter of kind of finding the right place and the right identity as a band before you felt ready to finally put out a full length?
It was a matter of getting the means of production to work in your favor. We had to persuade many forces, sort of, with impact, that we should do an album and not another EP. And we would, if anybody would suggest to us at any time, hey, do you want to record 20 songs? We would probably be like, yeah, sure, let's do it. But now it was actually a serious suggestion from our producer, and with an idea on how to do it, and we just had to work around it. Then during that process, we sort of managed to shape some sort of identity that we are still going for, and I think that we had to grow up in the process of making the album. If we wouldn't have managed to do so, we probably wouldn't have come out with an album.
I don't see identity as a band is something. Sure, you shape an identity, of course, but it's also a constant journey where your identity changes. And I would say, sure, I think we had a sufficient identity to make an album, but since we made an album, I feel like we're still changing as a band, and our identity is still changing. Hopefully there's something you can find in everything we've done that is coherent, but I also hope that we will constantly change, and you will find that everything we release new is a bit of a new twist on what identity you might perceive that we had before.
Cool. And then in terms of the style on the record, from the outside looking in, it does kind of feel like you've kind of streamlined your sound a bit and gotten a more focused style, and it kind of sounds like more kind of sharp, upbeat, direct indie rock songs. But there is also a little bit more room for experimentation on the record, and you have that. There's a lot of kind of strange outros, more expressive outros, and then there's songs like the Thank You Awards, which is also something a little bit different than what you've done before. Do you think having the extra length of a full album gave you more space to experiment?
Yeah, I think that we had some time to analyze our previous work and see, not just be in the rehearsing space and always make something new. We could be asking ourselves, what do we tend to do? What do we enjoy doing in music? And then put that in a new context, maybe write a song in a new way. It's still us being authors behind the song, so it's still gonna be another fragrance of us. But I think that also when me and Benjamin, when we decided to sort of split the band and just be more us two as directing forces, we could work our way around that. It's not always going to be this classic rock song, which it tends to become if you're more people and everyone's going to decide. We could be saying, yeah, let's make a film noir song, and let's make a ballad made in one take, or let's make like a real rock and roll song. And we could put our focus on more experimenting with genres, styles, samples, whatever.
Yeah, I think I mean, like you said before, it has been very much like we're a band and everyone plays their own part, and you meet up at the rehearsal space, everyone writes their own part, it becomes a song, you do that for 4 times, and then you go into the studio a very limited amount of time, you record everything and you release an EP. It's very like But I think now it's just a lot of things that opened for more experimentation was just spending more time in the studio, just being us two making the decisions, even though of course there are more musicians playing on the actual record, but like we had the editorial position. So it's sort of going into the studio and then listening to everything and sort of being able to have an outside perspective on the songs made it easier to just, your ideas pop up and you start experimenting and changing things up, and you can remove an instrument and things like that. Like the song Thank You Ward, we would never be able to write that before because you're not going to tell half the band to not play on a song. That's harder to do. So I mean, we did get that from just us two meeting up and playing, and it does open up for a lot more expression. But I also think that's like one of the maybe new identities, so like a way we're moving as a band towards more experimentation. And I think it all connects in that way, that we have set up the band to be able to do that more, and it also results from the new shape that our band has taken and the new way we're working with our music.
And if you're going to say Tella Viv as a band are kind of quite openly a rock band, and that's quite a curious place to be in 2020, because it's sort of like almost a theatrical piece, like, and you guys play into that with like the swagger in your songs and the costumes you wear live. It's kind of like putting on an identity of performance for the show and for the album, and kind of pretending to be someone almost bigger than you can be as a normal person. So what are your kind of ideas around that, like the position of being, say, a rock and roll band in 2020?
I think there's like two ideas that I come to think of, and there's one which is the niched rock band idea, with people dressing up as rock bands and acting like rock stars, which is very similar to like in the 80s when people had like big hair and they looked like metal musicians and they were playing ballads, soft ballads. And I think that it's similar to rock, that there's like, you can stylize yourself as an indie band, and then you're going to be considered one. And then also there's rock as an attitude, which is when you're sort of trying to restrain from falling into a specific genre, and that's, I mean, it's close to punk, I guess, and it's almost the same to me today, that you're refusing to fall into what others try to want you to fall into.
I think like rock for me is sort of a vein that runs through the popular music history of the last almost, 100 years by now. I think there's a lot of different conceptions of what rock is, really. I just, like I told you this anecdote before, like I told someone I do some extra work at a warehouse, and I just told the guy there that I played in a rock band. And one day he came to me and he's like, because we have these speakers you can listen to music to, and he was like, yeah, let's listen to some rock, yeah. And he put on like Nickelback, or that kind of style of American, almost like country-like rock. And I just realized, like, oh, this is what he thinks I mean when I say rock. I don't mean that at all, of course. For me, that's like the biggest nightmare of what a rock band can be. And I think that's sort of being a re-representation of what rock is, that we have this concept of rock, oh, it's this genre, and that's what we're going to, it's like a parody of what rock is, almost. And I think that's the biggest nightmare, is to become some sort of revivalist or like there's such a
Say kind of like a retro artist.
yeah, or like there's a lot of bands in the rock genre that has sort of solidified, and people keep doing the same thing. Where a lot of genres, like rockabilly is a genre like that, and it feels like a lot of rock genres are starting to become more and more like Dixieland. Like when a genre exists for long enough, it becomes solidified, and people just return to the same image of it and just recreate it. For me, when I say rock, I mean, as much as I mean like early rhythm and blues kind of things, I also mean, of course, you have the whole 60s, 70s, but then also I mean punk, I mean new wave, I mean alternative, I mean indie. I mean, there's so much that I think sort of is more of a lineage than a specific sound. And I think what we do as a rock band is we sort of want to be the next step in that lineage. We don't want to look back and say, oh, this is what they did, we want to do the same thing. It's more like a family tree where we want to be the next generation of it.
It's also a comfort that you don't have to represent being yourself on that stage. And I think that's something that we found, especially during this album. We decided that we want to be something else, somebody else. And we need to be able to step into these characters. And I think that it's almost like a disease today that artists are constantly saying that they are themselves and that they're natural, and it comes with this bedroom identity that you're like, yeah, I made this music at home and I'm very natural, and it's
sort of like the influencer showing their regular life.
Yeah, and it's equally as fake as
constructed naturalist.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, if you're gonna like fast forward 50 years and look back on a time where everybody's just pretending to be these super naturalists that are so pure and clean, it's just gonna feel so dull. So I think that putting on a theatrical mask and trying to be a bit more extreme, it's a comfort for us, and it also widens our themes. We can explore more and just do more fun things.
Yeah.
But as you might say, so like being a rock band is being part of a long lineage, but you have a responsibility still to move forwards.
Yeah. No,
Might
definitely.
be a summary of what you were saying.
Yeah, sure, definitely. And I think that's something that a lot of people have a hard time understanding. A lot of people just recreate, and that's the thing that sort of kills a genre in the end. And I think if we want to keep rock alive, we have to say goodbye to we sort of have to accept that some of our idols are dead and they're not coming back, and we need to go someplace else.
But I mean, it's so, my favorite example of like this perversion of rock is like when at the Eurovision, when always like the Italians, if they don't have a ballad, they have like a rock band playing, or like a rock band, and it's just like so weird. It's really bizarre. If I mean, you don't want to like take the wrong drugs and put on that TV show, because you're gonna flip when you see this like guys in like ponytails and these like V-ring t-shirts and just like screaming their heart out, and it's so bad, and it's but it's fun still, but it's just like, it's pretty far from Chuck Berry, that what they're doing, but it's like I mean, it's as far as Berlusconi is from Julius Caesar. It's like it's just like a weird perverted form of rock, but it's really abstract as well. I mean, it's some sort of performance, but it's not on their terms. They think that it's really.
I don't know whose terms it's on.
No, but I mean, I have this old acquaintance who is like performing in Italy's like Who's Got Talent or whatever, him and his rock band, and it's, they're playing rock, and he's like Jim Morrison out there, but like in Italy, and they're just like, whoa, we've never seen this before, or we sort of have like 40 years ago, but this is at home.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know, it's
no, but it just becomes ridiculous. It's like those little fuckers, Greta Van Fleet, who just do some sort of recreation of 70s rock by wearing what looks like fake costumes. Like their clothes look like they're bought at a costume shop, like the hippie costume at a costume shop, and they're doing like weird pseudo Zeppelin covers. and it's just so fucking embarrassing. But a lot of people love it. I mean,
Yeah.
They're very successful.
they're very successful. The world is a strange place.
Almost as big as Nickelback.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but they're a meme band. I mean, because my only relationship to them is that I see like small Instagram clips like too close to Zeppelin or not. What do you think? And then it's just like he stands like whoa, 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 and like
It does the hand move.
yeah,
The Robert Plant.
and then it's just like yeah. I mean, if this is what people keep asking, then I guess it's pretty close to Zeppelin.
Yeah. No, I guess people want that.
Let's leave the butt rock bands alone for a while and get on
Yeah.
to the last question. So, what do you see as Tel Aviv's ideal live environment, if you can kind of build it in your head? If you're stepping out to play, like, what are you putting around you if you can create it yourself?
Wow, that's a big question. I mean, we're always kind of... I think one of the things that's been hard in Stockholm lately is that, I mean, right now, of course, nothing's happening, but if you look back a little, there are fewer stages, and we do like a big stage. I mean, I said before that we'll make the most of any stage, and I think there's an honor in that, but it's nice to have a bigger stage. I mean, not arena size, but somewhere where you can create more of a show and be able to move around more, where you have the dynamics of going close to each other, going apart from each other, where Carl can dive down into the audience, where so I think that's something that we really like when we get it. And of course it happens sometimes, but it's not always. I think I love when we play live when there's a lot of people there who wouldn't have seen us at another place or another time. I like it when there's people who are there naturally, or they're there for something else, and I get to play in front of them. Because that's sort of one of the things that I think about, and I think we both think that like we just wish people would come out, like everybody come see, because I think always when we have that opportunity, a lot of people will come up and be like, oh, I had no idea who you were, but I love this show. And I think that's always who sort of I want to play for, the people who have never seen us before, who probably wouldn't even look it up if they saw it, or listen to our music if they saw an ad for it. So I do really like when we have those opportunities.